My sister secretly threw out my anxiety medication because I seemed fine. Now she's crying that I ruined her future. You ever have one of those moments where you're like, wait, is this real life or am I getting punked? 'Cause listen, when I opened that bathroom drawer and saw my bottle was gone, my heart literally dropped to the floor. But I guess I should back up a bit. So hi, I'm 24. I've been dealing with anxiety since I was like 13. Not just I get nervous before a test anxiety. I'm talking panic attacks that hit out of nowhere. Like, one time I was just folding laundry and next thing I knew, I was on the floor thinking I was dying. Fast heart rate, dizziness, chest tightness, the works. It took years to even get a diagnosis because everyone thought I was being dramatic. Teachers told my parents I was just seeking attention. My dad, who, bless his emotionally constipated heart, said it was just teenage hormones. And my mom, she was too busy managing the chaos that is my older sister, Rachel. Well, she's the golden child. She's 27 now and she's always been that picture-perfect Pinterest board life girl. Valedictorian. Cheer captain, got into some Ivy League program and now works in tech with a LinkedIn profile that probably smells like rose water and productivity. Meanwhile, I was the sensitive one, the one who cried too easily, the one who didn't like loud noises or sudden changes, the one who needed therapy and, eventually, medication. The first time I took my anxiety meds and actually felt calm for more than like 5 minutes, I cried, because I didn't even know life could feel like that, like manageable. Anyway, flash forward to last year. Rachel and I ended up living together again, temporarily, after my lease fell through and she offered her guest room. She had just bought this swanky 2-bedroom condo after getting a big promotion and she was like, I'd love the company and you can get back on your feet without stressing. First, I was honestly shocked. She'd never exactly been the nurturing type. She always rolled her eyes at my meltdowns growing up, and she hated how I needed routines to feel okay. But I thought, hey, maybe adulthood mellowed her out. Plot twist, it didn't. The first few weeks were okay. We had our little routine. She'd go to hot yoga at 6 a.m. like a psychopath, and I'd take my morning meds, make tea, and do some remote work. But the cracks started showing real quick. Like this one time, I was watching a documentary about mental health while cooking, and she literally paused it and went, why do you watch this stuff? Doesn't it, like, keep you stuck in the anxiety identity? Girl, I brushed it off because I needed a place to live and I wasn't about to rock the boat. But then came the day my meds disappeared. I kept them in a labeled pill organizer in the bathroom drawer, just basic, boring white bottles from the pharmacy. That morning, I went to take my usual dose, opened the drawer, and it was gone. I checked my bags, my room, the kitchen, even the trash. I was low-key spiraling already because missing even one dose messes with me hard. It's not like skipping a multivitamin. It can seriously mess up my sleep, my appetite, my headspace. And right then, I could already feel the panic crawling up the back of my neck like static. So I texted Rachel. Me. Hey, did you see a white pill bottle in the bathroom? It was in the top drawer. She didn't respond for 45 minutes. Then she came home from work all casual, dropping her gym bag like nothing happened and goes, oh, I threw it out. You seemed fine lately. Y'all, I blacked out. Like I literally stood there frozen for a full 10 seconds trying to make sense of the sentence she just said. I said, you did what? And she just waved me off. I figured if you didn't need it every day, you were probably just psyching yourself out. Honestly, you're stronger than that. You don't need it. I don't even remember everything I said. I was shaking, crying, trying to explain to her again that this isn't something I take for fun, that this isn't some placebo thing I imagined into existence. She just kept going. I read this article about how meds actually make anxiety worse long-term. I was just trying to help you reset. Help? Bro, I nearly had a full-blown episode in the hallway. And when I told her she had zero right to touch my stuff, let alone throw away prescribed meds, she laughed and said, okay, well, next time I won't try to do you a favor. Chill. I had to spend the next 72 hours cold turkey, calling my doctor's emergency line, getting a rush refill, and riding out the worst withdrawal fog of my life. I couldn't sleep, I couldn't eat, and I definitely couldn't trust Rachel with anything ever again. That was the first crack, but it wasn't the last. 'Cause a few weeks later things escalated hard. And let me tell you, Rachel's perfect little future she cared so much about? Yeah, she should have thought about that before she messed with mine. Before I get deeper into this, I'd love to know what city, state, or country you're watching from today. Drop it in the comments below. And if stories about finding your voice and standing your ground speak to you, hit that like button and consider subscribing so you never miss the next one. Thank you, and let's keep going. Okay, so, fast forward about 3 weeks after the whole I threw away your meds because you seemed fine nightmare and things in the apartment were tense. Like we weren't exactly speaking unless we had to. Rachel started leaving passive-aggressive sticky notes about crumbs in the sink and quiet hours like we were in some college dorm. I was deep in survival mode, waking up with knots in my stomach, double-checking the location of my prescriptions every night, and generally just trying to stay invisible until I could move out. But then she hit me with the fakest invite in human history. Hey, I'm hosting a little dinner party Saturday. You should come. I think it'd be good for you to socialize. Babe, you literally yeeted my medication into the trash like you were Marie Kondoing my mental health, and now you want me to sip rose with your startup friends? I was this close to saying no, like inches away. But then this little voice in my head went, show up, be calm, be unbothered. Let her be the weird one. So I said yes. I mean, free food and a chance to make Rachel uncomfortable in her own condo? I can play nice. I had no idea what kind of unhinged chaos was waiting for me at that table. Saturday rolls around. I put on a basic but cute outfit, nothing too flashy, just mentally stable and thriving chic. I even baked lemon bars from scratch. I was on my wholesome Pinterest vibe. Guests start trickling in, all tech bros and wellness girlies. Think Lululemon, oat milk, and people who say let's circle back unironically. Rachel is in full hostess mode, wearing this flowy dress like she's auditioning for a wine commercial. And I'm just chilling, sipping sparkling water, making polite small talk with a guy named Liam who's into crypto and kombucha. That's when she does it. Right in the middle of pouring wine, with everyone mid-laugh about something someone said, she goes, "You know, I'm just so proud of my sister for coming out of her shell lately. Like she's really weaned off all the meds and everything. Cold turkey. Isn't that amazing?" Silence. I kid you not, the entire room paused like someone hit mute. And then people awkwardly smiled and nodded and did that weird nervous chuckle people do when they don't know what to say. I turned to her and went, "Rachel, I didn't wean off. You threw them out without asking. Let's not rewrite history." The guy next to me, his eyes bugged out. Rachel waved her hand and laughed like I was being so dramatic. "Okay, but did you die though?" And someone actually gasped, I swear. That moment snapped something in me. I had stayed quiet for weeks, tried to keep the peace, but she wanted to make me a story at her little dinner table. Cool. Let's tell the real story then. So I turned to the group, calmly, politely, and I said, "Just so everyone's clear, what actually happened is that I have diagnosed anxiety, and Rachel decided she knew better than my doctor, so she threw out my prescription behind my back. I had to get an emergency refill while dealing with withdrawal symptoms, and it could have been really dangerous. But sure, let's clap for her." I sat back and took a sip of water like it was tea. The vibes in that room? Immaculate. Everyone went silent. One of the guests literally stood up and said, I left something in my car. Be right back." He never came back. Rachel's face was bright red. She stammered some crap about how she was only trying to help and didn't think it was a big deal. Then she ran to the kitchen and stayed there, slamming cabinet doors like that was gonna make me apologize. After a few minutes, people awkwardly started leaving. One girl gave me a little nod on the way out, like silent solidarity. Another guy muttered, "That was messed up, man," under his breath as he dipped. I cleaned up my lemon bars, packed them into a container, and went to my room without a word. She didn't say a single thing to me for 2 days after that, not even a passive-aggressive sticky note. And I was fine with that. I was already making plans to move out. But then Rachel did something even worse. She didn't just cross a line, she full-on obliterated it. She tried to cover her tracks, not with an apology, not with accountability, but with a lie that backfired so hard it might have actually wrecked her entire career. And honestly, I wasn't even the one who ruined her future. She did that all on her own. So, let's just say the dinner party aftermath was the beginning of the end. The vibe between me and Rachel? Cold. Arctic. Absolutely glacial. She barely looked at me unless it was with some passive-aggressive, "I'm the victim here" face. Which, by the way, her favorite new phrase suddenly became, "I was just trying to help." She said it so many times it was like a weird meditation chant. I'd walk into the kitchen and hear her on the phone whispering to someone like, "I was just trying to help her." I didn't think she'd make it such a big thing. Like, "Babe, you threw away my medication. That's not helping. That's playing doctor with no license." But whatever. I was focused on leaving. I started looking for sublets, staying in my room more, avoiding shared spaces like the plague. It was uncomfortable, but I was surviving. Until one random Tuesday night, I walked past the dining table and saw her laptop open with her Slack tab up. I wasn't snooping, okay? It was literally right there. But what caught my eye wasn't just Slack. It was a message thread with her manager and my name. I stopped and read it. I wish I didn't. 'Cause what she was doing. She was venting about me to her boss, making herself sound like Mother Teresa for taking care of a mentally unwell sibling who's been unstable since moving in. I almost dropped the tea mug I was holding. She told them she was managing her sister's mental health crisis and navigating unpredictable behavior on top of her workload. She said she couldn't stay late because she was scared to leave me alone for too long. Girl, please. I hadn't spoken to her in days. I'd been literally staying out of her way. The most unstable thing I did that week was cry quietly while watching an old episode of The Great British Bake Off. I stood there, frozen, reading this whole thread. The worst part? Her manager was eating it up, sending her little sympathy messages like, "You're doing so much. Take time for yourself too." She was using my mental health as a pity prop for work points. The audacity should be illegal. I took a screenshot, sent it to myself, and sat on it for a few days trying to decide what to do. Because on one hand, I didn't want to be petty. But on the other hand, she literally jeopardized my medical safety and now she was weaponizing that to get out of staying late at her tech job? Nah. Nope. No way. So here's what I did. A few days later, she got invited to speak at this fancy company retreat thing. She was so hyped, called it her career-changing moment. Said she was going to talk about balancing leadership with personal responsibility or some BS like that. Girl was about to stand on a stage and do a TED Talk based on fiction. So I sent an anonymous email to her company's HR. Just a short note. Hello, I'm writing in regard to Rachel, her last name, who has recently made statements about being a primary caretaker for a family member dealing with serious mental health issues. I am that family member. These statements are inaccurate and exaggerated, and being used to justify workplace absences. I would appreciate a fact check before this narrative is further leveraged in public presentations. And then I watched it unfold from a distance. First, she came home looking tense. She didn't say anything. Then, 2 days later, I overheard her on the phone whispering frantically like, "No, I don't know who would say that. I never meant to lie, it's just misunderstood." Next day, she got pulled from the company retreat. She told people she voluntarily stepped down for personal reasons. I'm sure, Jan. And then, and this is where the karma hits like a truck, her boss asked to check in with her sister directly. Cause, if you're building your entire work-life narrative around being a caretaker, they kinda wanna make sure it's real. So she panicked, and suddenly she wanted to talk. She knocked on my door like we were besties and asked if I could do her a huge favor. If they reach out to you, can you just say, like, "I've been helping"? You don't have to lie, just don't say anything negative. Please. I said, "Rachel, you lied about me. You used my trauma for clout, you don't get to ask me for anything." She started crying. Legit crocodile tears. This could ruin my promotion. I didn't think it'd spiral like this. I was just under pressure and I panicked. And I said, "Cool. Now we both know what a real panic attack feels like." I didn't throw her under the bus. I didn't even reply when the HR team reached out. But I didn't lie for her either. I let her story crumble on its own. And it did. But of course, it didn't end there. Because now that she couldn't manipulate her job with my name, she had to find someone else to blame for her fall from grace. Guess who she picked? Alright, so after the whole HR saga, which I still can't believe even happened, like this isn't a Netflix limited series, it's my actual life, Rachel basically turned into a walking guilt grenade. She stopped asking me to lie for her, sure, but instead she switched tactics. Suddenly it was my fault she didn't get her promotion. My fault her boss didn't see her the same way. My fault people at work started keeping their distance like she had some contagious liar energy. Every conversation became this subtle, manipulative monologue. Like I'd be sitting on the couch, minding my business, eating yogurt or whatever, and she'd dramatically sigh from the hallway like we were in some soap opera. It's crazy how one misunderstanding can ruin everything you've worked for. Just wild. Or she'd open the fridge, pause, and say, "Guess I won't be able to afford organic anymore. Maybe I should just go back to student loans and anxiety too." Girl, let me be very clear, I never asked her to lie. I never asked her to fake being my caretaker or build an entire workplace identity off of my mental health. But in her head, I ruined her life. And she was determined to make me feel it. She started doing the most petty stuff. Turned off the hot water by accident the day I had a virtual therapy session. Forgot to get the groceries she promised to pick up, even though it was my money. Started slamming cabinets and sighing loudly whenever I walked in the room. Y'all, it was giving suburban villain origin story. And then came the worst one. One night, I'm in bed, already halfway into a melatonin coma, when my phone buzzes. It's Rachel. From across the hallway. I open the message, thinking it's gonna be another guilt-laced rant. But no, it said, "Hey, just so you know, if I don't get this job, I'm gonna have to move back in with mom and dad, and we both know how they feel about you." I sat up in bed like, oh cool, we're doing emotional blackmail now. Neat. I didn't respond, because at this point, there's nothing left to say. She'd crossed every boundary, weaponized my diagnosis, tried to sabotage my sense of safety, and now she was dangling our childhood trauma over my head like a threat? Bro, I was done. So the next morning, I packed a bag and left. I didn't even wait to get my own place. I just crashed on my friend's couch for a bit. Shout out to Emily, real one. She had tea, snacks, weighted blankets, and absolutely no judgment. I sent Rachel one text before I blocked her. "Hey, I'm not safe in that space anymore. I'll grab the rest of my things when you're not home. Please respect that." She didn't respond. Not right away. But the next day, she sent a wall of text. Like paragraphs. A full emotional novel in iMessage form. Started with, "I can't believe you're just leaving me like this." Then, "After everything I've done for you." And then, "You ruin my future because you're too sensitive to take a joke or a little help. Good luck finding someone else who cares that much about you." Girl, you didn't care. You controlled. You manipulated. You deleted my medication and lied about it to make yourself look like a saint. But sure, go ahead and rewrite history. Again, what really blew my mind though? She ended the text with, "Someday you're going to regret this. I'm the only family you have who ever tried to help." Excuse me? Let's not forget this woman once told our parents that I was faking panic attacks for attention when I was 16 and couldn't breathe during math class. The only family I have? Girl, you've been gaslighting me since puberty. So yeah, I stayed gone. Eventually, I did find a tiny studio. Nothing fancy, the shower pressure's questionable and the walls are super thin, but it's mine. And I can breathe again. But I wasn't done yet. Because the final twist, the part Rachel definitely didn't see coming, came from someone else entirely. Someone who'd been watching quietly from the sidelines until they decided enough was enough. And what they did, well, let's just say Rachel's little victim act finally got exposed in the most unexpected way. Okay, so here's where the universe served up karma on a silver platter with a side of poetic justice. I'd been living in my new studio for about 3 weeks, still surrounded by half-unpacked boxes and dollar store decor, but honestly, felt like a palace. And then I got a message, totally random, from a name I didn't recognize. Let's call her Carly. Profile pic was just a golden retriever and a blurry latte, so I almost ignored it, but something told me to check. The message read, "Hi, I hope this isn't too weird, but I think we have a mutual connection. I work with your sister. Or did work. Can I ask you something? Girl." My stomach dropped, so I replied cautiously, "Sure." And what came next? "Oh, buckle up," she goes. "I don't want to stir anything, but Rachel told a few of us you were struggling, like really struggling, like hospital-level struggling. She said she was taking care of you full-time, but then I found out from someone else that you moved out weeks ago and apparently that wasn't even true? So I'm confused." My jaw was on the floor. Not only had Rachel lied to HR, but apparently she'd kept the performance going even after I left. Still using my name to milk sympathy. Still spinning this narrative that she was some selfless martyr taking care of her poor, unstable little sister? What in the sociopathic LinkedIn cosplay is this? I took a breath and said, "You're not stirring anything, you're asking good questions." And no, she wasn't taking care of me. She threw away my prescribed meds and lied about it, and then she used that situation to get sympathy at work. I left. And she's still lying. Carly replied almost immediately. Her exact words. That actually makes a lot of sense. Turns out Carly was one of the newer hires at Rachel's job. She'd been hearing rumors that didn't match up. Stuff about Rachel sacrificing her personal life to support a sick sibling, but then casually mentioning that said sibling had moved out to live with a boyfriend, which I do not have. So cool. We're just inventing entire fictional men now? Anyway, Carly goes on to say that things at work had started to feel off. People were side-eyeing Rachel's stories, especially after the HR retreat thing got canceled. Apparently, Rachel had tried to pivot the narrative, like, "My sister doesn't appreciate what I do for her," and, "You try helping someone who's always in crisis." But listen, when Carly asked what exactly she'd done to help, Rachel's answers got real vague real fast. So Carly did something bold. She didn't go to HR. She went to a Slack channel, one of those internal support groups for mental health advocacy in the workplace. She posted anonymously but very directly. The message read something like, "How do we support employees who may be misrepresenting mental health challenges, not just their own but others? Is there a policy around using a family member's diagnosis to build workplace credibility without consent?" People started commenting, sharing stories, asking questions. A few others, who'd also worked with Rachel, privately messaged Carly with things they'd overheard. Turns out Rachel had been making comments like, "It's just easier when I play the caretaker role. People are more patient with me when they think I'm doing emotional labor at home. I'm basically a therapist and a product manager at this point." Do you see the manipulation here? This wasn't just one lie, it was a pattern. A whole fake persona she crafted like some toxic girl boss version of Florence Nightingale. So finally, HR got involved. Again, Carly told me weeks later that Rachel got pulled into a formal review. Not because of me, because her own colleagues started calling out the contradictions in her stories. And the best part? I didn't have to say a single thing, and the truth, slowly, quietly, did what it always does. It came out. Last I heard, Rachel wasn't fired, but she was transitioned out of her team. No more leadership track. No more retreats. And now she's blocked me on everything. Like, girl, what, you afraid I'm gonna sabotage your mood board? I haven't spoken to her since. But sometimes, when I'm sitting in my studio, journaling or doing my breathing exercises, I think about how hard she fought to paint herself as the hero, and how in the end she exposed herself as the villain. Okay, so I know I've been telling this like it all started with her throwing out my meds, but truth is, that was just the breaking point. Rachel's been crossing lines for years, and I mean way before either of us were paying rent or paying taxes. Let's rewind for a sec because context matters. Growing up, Rachel and I weren't just opposites, we were in different realities. She was the girl everyone adored. Teachers loved her. She got straight A's, never missed a project, wore those preppy little headbands and always said please and thank you. Me? I was the kid with the stomachaches and the attendance letters. Sensitive, spacey, doodled in my notebooks instead of taking notes. I felt everything too much and didn't know how to explain any of it. And when I tried, Rachel made sure I stopped. One memory I literally can't erase happened when I was 14. I had just gotten back from a therapy appointment, my very first one. It was a huge deal. I had finally convinced our mom to let me talk to someone. I came home with a little pamphlet in my hand and I was actually hopeful. Hopeful that I wasn't just broken. That maybe there were names for what I felt. Maybe even tools to fix it. Rachel saw the pamphlet on the kitchen counter and picked it up. She read the front, Understanding Anxiety in Teens, and just snorted. Seriously? Since when are you anxious? You're just lazy and dramatic. You don't need therapy, you need a reality check. I laughed it off at the time. 'Cause what else could I do? But it gutted me. She wasn't even trying to be cruel, that was just how she operated. If something didn't fit into her clean, curated view of the world, it got dismissed. A year later, I had my first real panic attack. Not the kind where you're nervous before a test. I mean full body, can't breathe, tunnel vision, collapse on the floor panic. It happened at school during a group presentation. One second I was standing in front of the whiteboard holding a marker and the next I was crouched behind a desk, gasping like I'd run a marathon. The nurse called home. Rachel picked me up because our mom was out of town. She didn't say a word the whole drive home, but the second we got inside she turned to me and said, "If you ever embarrass me like that again, I swear I'll make your life miserable. People already think I'm weird for having a sister who can't function. Get it together." For years, I internalized the idea that my feelings were too much, that my anxiety was just a burden for everyone else, that I was the problem. So I got quiet. I became the girl who tiptoed around her own emotions so Rachel could stay comfortable. And even when I finally got on meds years later, she still rolled her eyes every time I took them. Do you really need those? Aren't you just making yourself dependent? What if it's all in your head? Like, girl, yes, it's in my brain. That's literally where anxiety lives. Welcome to science. She always managed to frame her cruelty as concern. I just don't want you to use your anxiety as a crutch. You're so talented when you're not in your feelings. Maybe if you pushed through more, you wouldn't need pills. Meanwhile, I was pushing through more than she'd ever know. Because here's the thing about people like Rachel. They think mental toughness means pretending nothing bothers you. They think emotions are weaknesses, and if you just act confident enough, nothing can hurt you. But I've learned that real strength is being able to say, yeah, I'm struggling, and I'm still here. And that's what makes her so uncomfortable. 'Cause I stopped hiding. I started speaking up. I started choosing my peace over her approval. And to someone like her, that's the ultimate betrayal. But I wasn't about to shrink back down again, not after everything I'd been through, especially not after what came next. Because when Rachel realized she couldn't control the narrative anymore, she tried to take it one step further. She didn't just want to ruin my reputation, she wanted to sabotage my recovery. So after all the chaos, the HR fallout, the guilt-tripping, the Instagram DMs from her coworkers, you'd think Rachel would just retreat. Like take the L, maybe do some journaling, rewatch Eat, Pray, Love, and reflect a little. But no, that would require self-awareness. Instead, she went nuclear. So here's what happened. Couple weeks after Carly messaged me and the whole fake caretaker thing got exposed, I was finally starting to feel okay again. I had a rhythm going in my studio apartment. Therapy twice a month, medication back on track, even started doing yoga videos in the mornings like some kind of mentally stable queen. And most importantly, I was finally sleeping. But then, my therapist texted me. Yeah, that's not a sentence I ever expected to say. She's super professional, like very respect boundaries, keep it on the calendar type. But this message just said, "Hey, I don't normally do this, but something weird came up. Can I call you for a sec?" So of course, my heart did that thing where it tightens like a fist. I was like, did I miss an appointment? Did I say something wrong? Is she about to drop me as a client? I texted back yes, and she called. And what she said, I still can't believe it. Apparently, Rachel tried to contact her. She straight up called my therapist's office pretending to be me, used my full name, asked to confirm some information on file, and then started pressing for session details. My therapist's assistant flagged it immediately. She didn't give Rachel anything, of course, just said, "I'm sorry, we can't release that information without written consent," and asked for a callback number. Rachel panicked and hung up, but she left a breadcrumb trail. Because guess what number she called from? Her work cell. Like, I just sat there on the edge of my bed, phone to my ear, staring at the wall like I just found out I was living with a secret agent this whole time. I couldn't even form words for a second. I think I just said, why? Like, why would she do that? Rachel wasn't just trying to hurt me, she was trying to rewrite me. She needed to feel like she still had access to me, even if it meant violating my privacy. So I took action. I filed a formal privacy complaint with her workplace, anonymously, again. I flagged the behavior. I also notified my therapist's office, who added extra verification steps just in case she ever tried that crap again. Because if she's willing to impersonate me to try and control what my therapist knows, there is nothing she wouldn't do. I spent years thinking she just didn't get my anxiety, that she was clueless or careless or cold. But now I saw it clearly. She wasn't clueless, she was calculated. And when I stopped playing the role she wrote for me, the broken little sister, the unstable excuse she could use whenever life got too real, she unraveled. But even with all that, even with the boundary violations, the gaslighting, the sabotage, I still didn't expect what happened next. 'Cause one day, out of nowhere, I got an email. The subject line, "I need to explain." And let me tell you, it was not the apology I think she thought it was. Now I know I shouldn't have opened it. Every therapist would probably say, delete, block, protect your peace. But curiosity is a dangerous thing. So yeah, I opened it. And listen, I should have just burned my laptop. It wasn't an apology, it was a PR statement, like she was running damage control on her own ego. She starts off with, "I know you probably don't want to hear from me, but I need you to understand where I was coming from." Already? Nope, not how apologies work. Then she hits me with, "I've always had to be the strong one, the reliable one. I didn't have the luxury of falling apart like you did." Luxury? Girl, I was literally on the floor of our high school bathroom having panic attacks while you were rehearsing for pep rallies. She goes on, "It was hard watching you spiral when I didn't know how to help. So I tried to fix it the only way I knew how. I'm sorry if it came across as controlling. Classic Rachel. Sorry you interpreted my horrible behavior negatively. Not sorry for the behavior itself, but the real kicker? She ends it with this. I've lost so many opportunities because of this situation. I hope you're happy. I hope your version of the story was worth it. That was the moment I knew she didn't regret what she did. She regretted the consequences. She was still stuck in the mindset that my truth was an attack. That me standing up for myself, quietly, privately, and honestly, was some kind of campaign against her. I could have responded. I could have sent a detailed list of all the times she hurt me, all the moments she invalidated my pain, twisted my words, used me like a character in her personal tragedy play. But I didn't, because sometimes the most powerful closure is just choosing you and walking away. I went for a walk. I passed a little bookstore on the corner I'd never noticed before. Went inside, bought a journal and a weird little self-help book with flowers on the cover. And I realized maybe Rachel never changed because she never had to. She always had someone covering for her. Someone softer, smaller. Someone who stayed quiet. Until I chose peace over proximity. Boundaries over blood. Healing over history. And I swear, walking out of that bookstore for the first time in years I felt free. You know what's wild? After everything, people still ask me, but do you think you'll ever forgive her? And honestly, I don't even know what that means anymore. Like, what does forgiveness actually look like when someone repeatedly chooses to hurt you? Not out of ignorance but entitlement. 'Cause that's what it was. Rachel didn't just misunderstand me, she felt entitled to my life. To narrate it, twist it, decorate it with her version of help so she could stay the hero in her own story. And the thing about people like that is, you can forgive them 10 times but the second you stop playing your role you become the villain. So no, I don't forgive her. Not yet. But I have accepted that I may never get the apology I deserve and that's okay. It's been about 6 months now. My studio still has sketchy water pressure but it's full of plants. My little bookshelf is overflowing. My anxiety's not gone but it's managed. I've got a morning routine I actually look forward to. And therapy's still going strong. Still the best money I've ever spent. Rachel hasn't reached out since that email. Part of me thinks she's waiting for me to cool off, like she's still expecting me to come back and smooth things over. But I'm not angry anymore. I'm just done. That's all. And I mean that in the calmest, healthiest, most healed girl walking away with her coffee type of way. You don't get to rewrite my story and still be a part of it. You don't get access to me just because we share DNA. And you definitely don't get to decide when I'm fine. So yeah, I'm good now. Not perfect, but grounded. Clear. Free. I no longer need her to believe me. So if you're wondering how the story ends, there's no big confrontation. No tearful reunion. Just quiet and growth. Rachel can live in her version of events. I'll be over here, watering my plants and enjoying the peace she always told me I didn't deserve. And that's more than enough. Really appreciate you listening today. If you liked the story, don't forget to like, comment, and consider subscribing. And if you've been through something similar, I'd really love to hear it down in the comments. We're stronger when we share. Take care.